Yeah, glad to have everybody here and back again. And we're in the book of Revelation, and we're in chapter 20, and I went 4, 5, 6 verses last time. We're going to finish it up today with the Lord's guidance. And if you want to turn there, chapter 20, verse 6 through 8, the current focus on this slide. So we saw that, there's going to be a post-return scenario, and that's what 20 deals with. When Jesus physically returns, every eye shall see him at the Battle of Armageddon. And after that, we still have a 1,000-year millennium of real people living in a real world. It's not spiritualized, shouldn't do that. Certain organizations and interpretations say that it's allegorical, it's not real. I don't know how that's possible when it gives us definite pictures, Isaiah and other places, and describes it in detail as a physical reality. But starting in verse 6, blessed and holy are those who share in the first resurrection. The second death has no power over them, but they will be priests of God and Christ and will reign with him for 1,000 years. So this begs the question, what is the second death and what is the first death? So to most of us, those who won't experience the rapture, there will be an actual physical death. And so that is the first death. Everybody experiences the first death. But if you're made alive in Christ, then you will not experience the second death. The second death is when people are judged and they're sent into perdition. So that then defines the first and second deaths. Now, the first death and the resurrections that occur, each of those occurs at the end of a particular period. And right now we are in the what they call the church age, the gospel and age of grace. But before this, we had the age of the law, dispensation, some people call it. And of course, as I said, at the end of a particular period, you're going to have a culmination. In other words, there's a full stop, as the British say. So we're going to have a situation where at the end of a period, like the law of Moses, then there's a time where it ends. And can anybody tell me when the law of Moses and the old covenant came to an end?
When Jesus died.
On the cross, yeah. So that's why the curtain in the temple was cut in two. That's the way we'd say it today. It probably was anywhere from 6 inches to a foot thick. So it wasn't an accident. Of course, there was a great earthquake at that time. So at that point, the not just the symbolism, but the reality is that the Shekinah glory, the presence of God and the Ark of the Covenant departed, because that way of doing things, it's dispensation is just a theological word which means that a particular way of doing business, if you're talking business world. A particular way of administering, comes to an end, and another type of administering comes into effect. I mean, we see it every 4 years or 8 years, whatever here, and they use that word, this administration, that administration. So when you see, administrations in the past, they were there for 4 or 8 years, and at the end of that, another administration came in. In other words, a totally different way of doing things. And so that's our political system. But I'm using that as a reference only because that's in a very small way, in a very minuscule way compared to God's dispensation. As an example of what happens, in other words, everybody has their Bible, well, electronically or real, paper or digital, and for purposes of illustration, if you open it in the middle, roughly in the middle, you'll have Old Covenant on one side, New Covenant on the other side. So when the Old Covenant came to an end, Paul clearly states that in Hebrews, then at that point, the Old Covenant ceremonial laws, Judaism, what we think of as true Judaism, came to an end. So Judaism at that point no longer had any reality to it. It was not part of God's plan. So it continues on, but just to let us know, that was God was dealing a certain way. You say, well, why did he choose to do it that way? I don't know. You can take it up with him. His office is always open. Feel free to walk in and have a little discussion with him. Get straightened out. Okay. So at any rate, so when the new covenant began, the new dispensation, that's what we're in now, grace. And we know from experience now that it's roughly 2,000 years. And the old one, which started with Moses, was about 1,500 years. Scholars debate on the Exodus date and all that. But so the whole idea here is it's not really how long it is. It's the idea that God is dispensing. He's dealing out. He's administering and dealing in a certain way with people, with nations, with groups. So at the point where Jesus went to the cross, it is finished. It, of course, meant it is finished. His crucifixion and death was done, but it also, in a much wider way, meant the old covenant was done. The old covenant no longer had efficacy. We don't go by that. There's some Christian groups that still try to live in the old covenant, but they're way off base. I don't know how they can read Paul and believe that. But it's not that the law itself has been done away with. The law will always be there. But now the idea is we have God in us. We live the law because we want to live the law, not because we're trying to obey some external rules. And that's where Christians have gone wrong, no matter what denomination, where they've set up these rules, just like the Jews did. We read about the Old Testament of Jews and we go, oh, how could they be that dumb to set up all these laws? And then Jesus came in along and he said, you Pharisees, you set up the laws of the Jews, the traditions of the Jews. God didn't do anything. God had nothing to do with that. Those were men putting their rules in there. And like he said, those rules kept people out of the kingdom because they could not observe them. So then you had two classes, the righteous Pharisees who looked like they were observing them, but they're full of dead men's bones. And then the people who thought that's impossible, I could never achieve it. And we have that in some Christian religions today. It's like there's the holy people on the platform and the little people in the pews, and they can never be holy. So they just live with it. Okay, yeah, I'm not worthy. I'm not a priest or nun or a preacher or evangelist, whatever. I'm just a little worm out here. But that's not God's plan. That's not how it started. So when you get back to the Word, then we get a better idea. But just to get back to this, the whole purpose here is I'm saying that at the end of a particular period, there is a resurrection. So at the end of the Old Covenant period, when Jesus went to the cross, and then he went down and preached to the captives in Hades, in the underworld, Abraham's bosom, then he took all of the righteous with him. In other words, all of the righteous from the beginning to the time that Jesus went down and resurrected then, he took with him. It says he led captivity captive. But they all went, now it's empty. Abraham's bosom's empty. Okay, we start a whole new dispensation. New administration has come to town. It's called the Gospel of Grace, specially enunciated by Paul. Paul was given the greatest part of the message. Not that the others didn't have it, but Paul had a special place, was given a special revelation, which it took 10 to 15 years before the others even realized what Paul was saying. And even in the end of Peter's gospel, it says, Peter writes some things that are hard to understand. He's really saying, I don't get it, but I know it's from God, so, don't just lay it aside and be foolish. So, Peter was a simple fisherman. Paul was a high-level, multi-PhD scholar. They're just two different worlds. So God gave the deep things to Paul because his mind was able to handle it and communicate it. And Holy Spirit did that to us, gave that to us. So what we have here is at the end of our dispensation, at this time, we're going to have another resurrection. And Paul is the one that writes about it. That's how we know about it, mainly. In 1 Corinthians 15 and also 1 Thessalonians 4, the two big rapture passages, he says that, the mortal must take on immortality. The fleshly, you have to get rid of the fleshly and just become a pure spiritual body. And that's our resurrection happens at the rapture. That's the whole meaning of the rapture. So there are various opinions. In this class, I'm teaching, of course, the Assembly of God, and also what I agree with beforehand, before I ever joined the denomination, is that the rapture has to take place based on what I'm just saying. The Old Covenant resurrection happened. It's over. The New Testament revelation and what we have in this covenant, a covenant is like a legal agreement. You know, when a New Testament means the Old Testament is done away with, and it's you know, the brunt of it is done away with. Not that we can't learn from it, but the whole idea is if you go to a lawyer and we're just drawing up some legal documents ourselves, and you know, and it's like, but you know, you see it in shows on TV, whatever. You know, some old guy's about to pass on. He's a multimillionaire, and he has a will and testament, and everybody thinks they're in it. And then the lawyer comes out and says, "Wait, there's a new one. He gave it to me yesterday, and guess what? The old one, we don't even go by the old one. They're not trying to live in the new agreement and the old agreement." And Paul makes that case. He says, when the new covenant comes, the old covenant is done away with. You can't live by both of them. You either go with the real one or the past one. So that's what we're in. We're in the real one. So people, we read New Testament and we don't think legally, because testament's not a common word, but it's a legal word. A testament just means it's Old English for covenant, an agreement, a binding agreement. So that's what we have. We have the New Testament. So when we say we're a New Testament church, what it should mean is that we're not trying to be Jews. And that's what Paul fought in all of his Gospels. Everywhere he went, the Jews were trying to get his converts to be Jews again. They're called Judaizers. So that's what he was up against. I mean, if you really read all his epistles, every one has to do with that. And John also. John talks about, you know, Antichrist going out into the world, and the spirit of Antichrist. A lot of that was the Judaizers. But at any rate, so at the end of our dispensation, we are going to be taken up and translated. It sounds like a Hollywood fiction movie. And of course, anything that God does is way beyond Hollywood. I don't know if CGI and computers could even do it justice. How would you even make a movie about it? Or you just, in this frame we're here, and in this frame we're gone. That's how it would work. You know, there's no transition. I'm not going to watch people floating away. When it says the flowery language going to meet him in the air, it's just a way of stating, a poetic, lyrical way of stating that we are going to go to the heavenly. Because in that day, they all thought of heaven as being in the clouds, right? We see it today. You see a cartoon or something with an angel, right? He's sitting on the cloud with a halo and a harp. That's the way we think, right? Heaven is in the clouds. And not for, you know, no purpose, because we think that way because ancients thought that way. The heavens, uranos in Greek, simply meant, you know, the clouds and the sky and the universe and all that type of thing, whatever's above us. So when we go up, we're at the end of that dispensation. And then there's a 7-year period in Daniel 9:24 through 27, we call the tribulation. And the tribulation is its own dispensation. If you read through Revelation, that's the brunt of it, chapter 6 through 19 and beyond, is all about the tribulation. So the tribulation is both an exciting topic and also should be one for dread for the unbelievers, if they really understood what was coming. Just much like if people in Europe, and especially the Jews in 1939, had realized what was coming, to them, I'm sure it was like a bad movie too. It's like gas chambers, we're all going, nah, that's crazy talk. No human being would ever do that to another human being. But within a day, Hitler invaded Poland in the fall of 39, and then after that, it was gas chamber city. You know what I'm saying? It didn't happen immediately, but that ball started rolling. So it's like this. We're going to have a period where we're here, and then everybody's going, oh, that's nonsense. I've heard all that nonsense. And then we're going to be gone. The world's going to be in a horrible situation. And as we studied before, the book of Revelation paints a picture. We know what's coming. Not every detail, but we know the overview. God has given us the overview and the framework of the Revelation, tribulation, and period beyond. We're now going into the period beyond. So at the end of the 7 years, there's also a resurrection and a punctuation and an event that says this is the end of that. So at the end of the 7 years, the tribulation saints will receive their resurrected bodies. The ones that are dead. I mean, They're the live ones go into the millennium, right? God sends his angels, Matthew 24:31. He sends his angels and gathers them together, and he protects them, and they go into the millennium. So at the end of the millennium, you have another resurrection, and that's the resurrection of the millennial saints. So all of them at the very end, the ones who went before and the ones who are living, they will get their resurrection bodies. So what is the punctuation point at the end of the millennium? That's what we're reading today. So it says here that the ones who are with him and godly people are going to reign for 1,000 years. And when there's those 1,000 years are complete, in verse 7, Satan will be released from his prison. Okay, so he's locked up. God has sealed him and locked him up. Some were referred to as being in the abyss, which is part of Hades. And at that time, he's going to be let go to go and deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth. Scientists have found there's actually four corners in the earth, but I don't think it's four bumps around the world, if you will. But I don't think this is always, well, it's talking about north, south, east, west. That's how the ancients thought about it. We still think that way. Even though it's round, we still say east, west, north, and south, right? So how can it be south? If you keep on going south far enough, where are you going to end up? You're going to end up north. It's not like, you go down south, you go to Antarctica, and about midway through, there's a sign and a barrier saying, now leaving this, it's not like that. Okay. And we'll go out to deceive the nations, four corners, the entire world. Another way of saying the entire world. Gog and Magog. This is a general reference to a particular group of people. Of course, this Gog and Magog specifically referred to Ezekiel 38 and the peoples we studied there. But I believe here it's telling us that the rebellious peoples, and God calls them Gog and Magog, assemble for battle against Christ. And guess what? It's the shortest battle in history. I don't know what actually is the shortest battle. Maybe one of you guys know, but I guess the shortest battle to me, if you call it a battle, would be dropping the bomb on Hiroshima. That battle was over before it started. They didn't know what hit them there, unfortunately, but for the innocent people. But that's what happened.
It sounds like when you say that Jesus spoke, double-edged sword. That's like a bomb exploded.
Yeah, exactly. It's instantaneous. It's not like, okay, Jesus has got this military martial plan, and he's going to bring troops, he's going to position them, we're going to have some skirmishes. No, it's not like nobody else fights. That's what people miss. None of these other guys, he's got thousands, probably millions of people behind him, right? None of those fight for a lick. They don't fight at all. He doesn't need anybody to do his fighting for him. So it's like a bomb going off, instantaneous. So at the end of that period, you have people rebelling, and as I mentioned last week, it's because the fact that the people, will be the children of the initial millennial saints. The ones that initially come in, they're going to have lots of children, just like in the beginning after Garden of Eden, and they will have free will. God doesn't force anybody to believe. They're going to go along with Christ and his reign because it's prudent to do so until they have enough guts to follow somebody who's going to lead them into darkness. And he comes back out, and you can bring that up with God. Why'd you lock him up and bring him back out again? It's above my pay grade. So, but at any rate, that's how what is written is the way it shall be. I think that's in the Ten Commandments. The Pharaoh says, it is written, it is, I've established it. That was also the law of the Medes and the Persians, as it says in Daniel, where when the king made an edict to kill Daniel, he couldn't revoke it. And, it was a horrible pain for him because he really liked Daniel and he didn't want it to happen, but his enemies tricked him. And so Daniel was thrown in a lion's den because he could not revoke his edict. So, and we know the rest of that story. So the devil, at this end of this time, he's finally thrown into the lake of fire. At this point in all of history, up to this point, like at least 1,007 years from now, I say that because if the tribulation happens tomorrow, 7 years, 1,000, and then this is going to happen. It's at least 1,007 years. At this point, then, the devil is thrown into Gehenna, the lake of fire, which is not specified as a particular place. As I mentioned, I think it's interdimensional, but hyperdimensional. But that's neither here nor there. The idea here is that he has been thrown in there and he has company. Does anybody remember who were the first two to go into the lake of fire and when they went into the lake of fire?
The false prophet. And
Judah.
no, it wasn't.
Antichrist and false prophet. Yeah, you had it. Yeah, exactly. So for 1,000 years, they've been in there. Nobody else has ever been in there. And that's really hell. When we think about the flames and all that stuff, that's the real hell. And we have this idea that people are in hell now. Nobody's been in hell. No people have ever been in hell yet. Not this hell. Remember, there's 5 words in Greek. So Gehenna is the everlasting flames. So when Jesus talks about being burned with everlasting flames, he's talking, yes, sir.
So I'm reading your slide up there. Can you help me understand? I thought the beast or, Antichrist was the devil, but it's kind of stating up there they're separate.
Well, there's the person or personage who is the Antichrist, who is an actual person in a body. I have my own theory about how all that's going to unfold. But anyway, it's an actual person in a body. And the false prophet is an actual person in a body. So, however you believe, it's either Satan will totally empower and control him or, in some sense, indwell him. But he is a spirit being. So if the Antichrist that he's controlling or indwelling, if he, Judas is a perfect example. The scripture says, it's the only place you can find it, the devil entered into Judas. And the word in Greek just means in. There's no special meaning. Greek is usually very, very specific. So in other words, what happened when Judas hung himself? Was Satan hung? No, because he's a spirit being. He could get in some way control and maybe inhabit him. I mean, we talk about possession, right? If a little demon is nothing compared to Satan. If a little demon can inhabit somebody, I guarantee you Satan can. It might be just a moot point of semantics. Is he inhabiting him? Is he taking him over? Is he possessing him? Use whatever words. It doesn't matter. The effect's the same. So, yeah. So when the Antichrist, the personage, the physical body and man, is thrown into the lake of fire, Satan, of course, he leaves the scene. He's like the mastermind. We've been watching old cowboy movies. They have like 6 guys riding in, and there's the mastermind, and there's a shootout, and the mastermind's on his horse and gone before it's over. They got to track him down. So, but anyway, it's like this. Satan is going to be out of there. He talks a good game, but when push comes to shove, he's a coward. Yes, sir.
So that would be the unholy trinity, and then they are the first two from that unholy trinity. Satan is the one.
Yeah, so I would say the demons are part of the mimicking the spirits. So yeah, it doesn't say demons are going into lake of fire, but there is a general idea, and I think it's quite prevalent and quite obvious that evil, whatever a being is, any type of evil entity ends up in a lake of fire. Because where are they going to go? He's making a new heavens and a new earth. They're not going to live there. They'll be burned up, and they're spirit beings, so they have to end up somewhere. So even though it doesn't explicitly state it, it has to be the case. So, you have it. So the devil goes into Gehenna, and saying that I like is this: you will go where your master goes. If your master goes to heaven, and you are following your master, you will go to be with him in heaven, right? I go to heaven and prepare many houses for you, dwelling places. Where I go, you will be also, okay? Well, the inverse, the negative also is true. So wherever Satan and his disciples go, they all go. So that's what's going to happen there. Anyway, so we see that the devil is going to go. Antichrist and a false prophet will already be there. And it got cut off a little bit, but I'm not sure how that happened. But at the bottom right is Gehenna. It's not part of Hades. At least it doesn't say it. I don't think it is part in the Hades. because of the fact that after the new heavens and new earth are burned up, it definitely, if it is part in any way, even in another dimension of the earth, it's going to be renovated and gone. So, which makes sense because it'll be empty. In other words, when the new heavens and the new earth come, we're going to see that everybody's judged and they're in their final spot. And so the only thing that's left is Gehenna, and Gehenna is everlasting. And Jesus said it is. The Greek says the ions, in other ages of ages, is their way of saying eternal. So that's what it is. So we've talked about this chart before, and unfortunately it's cut off, but at the bottom right we have a red circle. That's Gehenna. That's where false prophet, Antichrist, and even Satan eventually go. And then we have the great white throne judgment. So at the end of the 1,000 years, we have the resurrection, and we have the great white throne judgment. The saints from the millennium will be resurrected at that point. They'll be given their new bodies at the end of the millennium. And so that's, remember I said at the end of each time period, there's a resurrection. Okay? Old covenant, resurrection, new covenant, resurrection, tribulation saints, the translation, and then we have the translation resurrection of the millennial saints. So they're going to be immortals. They're going to have to be translated. And it says that the great white throne is the place that it's going to occur. It's obviously a heavenly place. It's not an earthly throne. Earth and heaven fled from his presence, and no place was found for them. Well, if earth and heaven all fled, then that indicates to me it's not in the three-dimensional, four-dimensional world. It's not time, space, and three dimensions. It's obviously in a different dimension. So all the lower dimensions that we live in right now will be gone. And God will exist because he's multidimensional. He's in all dimensions. God is everywhere at all times. So if right now they've discovered 11, but if they discover 100 dimensions tomorrow, God is going to be in all 100 dimensions. It's not like there's some dimension God's going to be left out. He's the one that created the dimensions in the first place. And so the books are open. This is a very important part to come to understand. And that is that there are two different sets of books. And these books exist for everyone. The difference is whether you are going to be condemned or not. Okay. So there are books, and Jesus said his disciples were going out and doing great things, right? Wondrous signs, miracles, healing people. They did all types of great things. And they came back and they were kind of bragging about it. Boy, we did this and we did that. And he said, don't be grateful for it. Don't focus on that. He's basically, in modern English, he's saying, don't get hung up on that. The important thing is that your name is in the book of life. Because ultimately, everything that everybody does, their whole lives, only come down to this moment in time. It's really out of time, but it's in time at the same time. It's a paradox. So at this very point, at the end of the 1,000 years, everyone will be resurrected. See, there's two things people don't understand. All beings will be resurrected, human beings. I'm not talking about Martians. They're not human. Just kidding, little joke there. At any rate, so all humans will be, no matter what the situation, they're going to be in resurrected bodies at this point. And all beings will live forever. You know, I don't know about Elon Musk, but some of these guys, they're putting lots of money into eternal bodies. And then they like to have a backup plan. If that doesn't work, we're going to load our personality and our mind into a machine. They're actually working on it. This is not pie in the sky. It's no longer sci-fi. That's what they're doing. So, and of course, when you have a brain implant like Musk is working on, it's baby steps now, but 10 years from now, even 5 possibly, they're going to be able to read your thoughts through this device. At the very least, they're going to be able to record what you are and things that we would say are your personality, maybe even your memories. So the idea here is if they can extract that and they can put it in a digital form and store it in the cloud, who knows what the cloud will be called by then, something else, probably called the universe, stored in the universe. Then at that point, of course, then they believe they have immortality. Of course, that's all nonsense. but because God will have the last laugh on that one. There's nothing they can do, and they don't realize that they're going to live forever anyway. See, that's the big lie. I die like a dog, and that's it. I'm not going to live beyond this. The question is not whether you're going to live forever. Everyone lives forever. The question is, where are you going to be? Okay? Do you want to be in, Hawaii in a top-notch hotel there? Or do you want to be in San Quentin? Where do you want to live out your eternal life? You want to be, in a 4x4 room with a metal toilet, or do you want to be in the Ritz? And that's what it comes down to. It's not a matter of, I'm not going to be somewhere. Yes, you're going to be somewhere. So God is perfectly fair. You're going to end up where you deserve to be in general, except for us. We're going to end up where Christ deserves to be. We're not going somewhere because we deserve anything. We're going somewhere because he paid the price. Yes, sir.
They said we're going to be where we deserve to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in other words, every man has free will. He either decides for Christ or the devil. You make the decision. You will decide where you end up.
I will.
Everybody. Not just you. I mean, everybody. God gave us free will. You make the choice. That's the difference between us and animals.
Call him.
Everybody. Everybody is going to make a choice. Even if Paul says in Romans chapter 1, I believe, he says, even if they've never heard the message, they should be able to look at the universe and the stars and everything else and realize there's a God. Even in primitive societies, they all have a religion, by the way. For the best of my knowledge, and I've read this, no matter where people go and find an undiscovered people group, they have gods. Man is inherently religious in the sense that he knows there are God or gods above him. There's no such thing as an atheist tribe in Bongo Bongo. Yes, sir.
Because we're connected to God who made us.
Right. So
And so when we start believing something different, then you create other gods. Yeah.
right. So if you proceed down the non-real God path, the illusion path, then yeah, your illusion will get grander and grander and more refined. And then when it's refined enough, we call it Hinduism or Buddhism or Shintoism. Take your pick. That's what happens. That's just an evolved delusion. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, could you please clarify on verse 12, when John said, I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and the books were open, which is the book of life.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dead were judged according to their works. So, if we're in the book of life, we're safe. I know that.
Right.
But, and obviously the works is different because you give the crowns because the works you did, that's different, okay. But why he said, I saw the dead if we are alive?
Well,
If we're safe, in other words.
I think there's double meaning there. First of all, they were dead. Now they're in a resurrection body. So, but the other part of it is the fact that these people are the ones who are going to have to be judged. I think all people who died in the resurrected bodies are going to become before this tribunal. It's not a tribunal, it's God.
We're safe or we're dead?
No. At this point, everybody will have been dead, but everybody will be in a resurrected body.
Okay.
There are no people anywhere else. No people on earth. Well, I take that. Yeah, that's right. At that point, there aren't. I was going to say millennial saints, but they've also been taken up there.
We could be dead physically or spiritually.
Well, that's it I was getting to, is that I think it has more to do with being dead spiritually. So we're going to stand before God, and our lives have been recorded. We're in the book of our deeds. It's not that we don't have a recording. God can play back your whole life. He's recorded it. The difference is, like in a court of law, after they presented all the things against you, then they have somebody come in, and he's the ultimate lawyer defender. His name is Jesus. And he comes in and says, all that's true, but you forgot one thing. They're with me. Case closed. Next. Judge says, next. If you're in Christ because you have faith in him, not because of anything you've done, just because you have faith in him and you're born of the Spirit, then at that point you have a get out of free jail ticket. You're not going to jail, okay? And that's the whole idea. That's what people miss. There's nothing you can do. It's all by faith. Paul makes that case so strongly. And that's the whole basis of the Reformation, is that faith, you're justified by faith, not by anything you can do. And that's the essence of all religion. All religion is you're going to do something, penance or whatever, sit in the yoga position. You're going to do something to get to God. You are doing it. And the gospel, which people say, oh, that's too simple, you believe in Christ and it's done. That's it. It's so simple, you have to have help to miss it. The devil has to help you miss that message. And but people's hearts ultimately, remember Jesus said, even if somebody was raised from the dead, they wouldn't believe. And it happened. He raised Lazarus from the dead. The Pharisees, they all saw it. They all knew it happened. They knew he was dead and should have been stinking. And he was alive, and they ate with him. And then they go back to Jerusalem and say, we got to kill this guy. So did somebody from the dead convince them? No, Jesus said it wouldn't. If you have an evil heart, somebody could come back from the dead. You'll make excuses about how it happened and how it wasn't real.
We are again the devil to see people that
Yeah.
they're going to call this
The devil is one of the main ones, except many people have said the purpose of the millennium is that it demonstrates that the devil was not the only one behind this. He was the capo of the mafia, but even when the mafia is gone, there's still criminals everywhere. Okay, and that's the idea. So that's been said. I think it may have some truth to it. He wants to demonstrate to all creation he's fair and just. So when old comedian Flip Wilson says the devil made me do it, nobody will be able to do that in the millennium. There is no devil making anybody do anything, because people's hearts are evil. The problem is their heart, not the devil. It's not anything out here. It's because they have stinking thinking, because our minds will not be renewed by the Word of God. At any rate, so the books are open, and so you have two books, the book of life and the book of deeds. Think of the book of deeds as the ultimate audio-video recording of your entire life from beginning to end. And so people are going to go before the white throne judgment. They're going to say, as this slide shows, and I've heard all these, I'm no worse than anybody else. God's a loving God. He's not going to send me to hell. I was a good person. By whose standards? Yeah, you might be better than, Joe Grazzatori next door is part of the mob. That always gets me. The mobsters, they will go wipe out some people, and then the priest will come over, the bishop, and they're good friends. And they give a lot of money to the church. You know what I'm saying? Like you can buy off God. You can be a murderer and buy off God. It doesn't work like that. I believed in a God or gods. All of these, you find the people out there today, all of them saying this. I believe in Buddhism. I'm good. I'm Shinto. I'm into Islam, whatever false religion. So I'm religious. So if somebody says I'm religious, I get turned off right there. I hope, and my answer should be, if I don't say it, I hope not. Because religion is you trying to make yourself justified to God or becoming a God through your own efforts. That's just the opposite of the Christian message. You can't do a thing. So, people say, you'll witness for Christ. Oh, you're religious. No, I'm not religious. I studied religion at the University of Miami. I have a degree in it. I know about all of them. At least I used to. Forgotten most of it. I'm just saying, there's, pick your religion. There's 10,000 religions out there. None of them are going to help you. None of them can get you any place. If Christ didn't die for you, then Christ died for nothing, and there is no hope. That's the message of the cross. So at any rate, no matter how many excuses, I just put a few here. You could go on, you could make 10,000 of these excuses. Go out and witness to people and write down, every time you encounter somebody, write down their excuse. They're all going to be variations of this. So at any rate, to finish it up, I may actually make it through today. Miracle. Okay, death and Hades thrown into Gehenna. So in verse 13, the sea gave up his dead, and death and Hades gave up their dead, and each one was judged according to his deeds. Okay, and that's what I'm saying. There's the book of deeds, and then there's the book of life. The book of life is only, God's an optimist. This is another thing people don't realize, and the wording is important. When Christ said, be thankful your name is not blotted out of the book of life. Everybody, the worst murderer's name is in the book of life. until he dies. At the point that you die, all bets are off, your chances are gone, and your name is blotted out. It's no longer in the book. But the worst person has had their name in the book of life. Everybody's name is in the book of life. There are no exceptions. God, that's how positive he is. He believes that everybody deserves a chance, a second chance, however you want to look at it. And he's going to give you that chance right up until the time you die. But as it says, Paul says in Hebrews, unto man is appointed one the death and then the judgment. In other words, this is the biggest lie. Hinduism is the biggest lie Satan has ever cooked up. He's got billions of people believing it. I'm coming back. Reincarnation. Lion King. The circle of life. All the lies of Satan. That's the lies of Satan. Why should I don't have to make a choice now. I'm going to come back. I'll even be better than I am now. I'll choose then. No, you're not coming back. It's a con job. He's a con man. Everything he says is a con. It's like gambling, right? You know, my partner, I won't say who it is, and some other people, we were on a conference call, and they were talking about going to Vegas. Our Oracle AI World was in Vegas last week. So they're all talking about Vegas. Everybody's all hopped up on Vegas. And, you know, it's like they're talking about, how they give them free rooms, and they front them money, and they do all this stuff. And, you know, and then one of the guys said, well, but it's not out of the goodness of their heart. That's an understatement. No, it's a con job. They get you in there, they get you hooked. And my cousin Pat, he's passed on, and so I can say that. He's not going to be listening. But he moved to Vegas, and he got really involved there. He finally got out of it and got himself right with God. But in other words, he was so hooked, he had to move there from Ohio. So, you know, he was sold out gambler. But, you know, he did finally make a lot of money, but it was because he had an automotive parts business, not because of Vegas. So, at any rate, that's just a personal story that I don't think he would mind me sharing, since he did finally come to the Lord. And he was a Catholic boy, but I'm convinced that he did receive the Lord. So, at any rate, and what we have here is that at the end, the death and Hades are thrown into the lake of fire. And we have a dilemma there. Can you tell me what kind of being is death, and what kind of being is Hades? There's a dilemma. Death, although we call it the Grim Reaper, right? You have this ghostly figure with a scythe. But of course, in some sense, I think it's maybe a little metaphorical, but basically what it's saying is that at this point in time, as I mentioned earlier, everything that's evil, death is the last enemy, Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15. Death is our enemy. And it's going to be thrown in there. Hades, where all the unbelievers and everybody was at one time, that's going to be done away. So I think this is his catch-all. You know, what do we call that? It's like a wild card, right? Just whatever you're trying to figure out, this is the wild card. Basically, everybody and everything that's evil is going into Gehenna. Yes, ma'am.
We do not decompose, and people think, oh, you're going to be thrown in the fire and decompose.
No, we do not decompose. Everyone has to have their resurrected body, and the people who do not follow God are going to be forever in their resurrected body in a place that's not fun. It is not a fun house. Gehenna is the worst possible place. And if you think that's too harsh, again, it's above my pay grade. What raise? I don't get a raise. It's above my pay grade, and you can take it up with God. So he's totally fair, and that's how it is, and that's what he says, and I believe it. And next week, we're going to go into the 3 news. New. So after this great white throne judgment, we have new. Can everybody say, new? You sound like a bunch of lunatics. Yeah, so a new heaven, a new earth, and a new Jerusalem that we're going to live in. Although it seems like a pipe dream, it's what the Word says. And yes, ma'am.
Real quick, the place that he has put us in sounds like we're going to be crowned and governed somewhere. I feel like that's our place, and he will give you that crown.
We are the bride of Christ, so we are like a co-regent in a sense, not equal to, but in a similar, we're going to have a lot of authority. The word doesn't go into it, probably because everybody would go around killing themselves just to get there. So I'm joking, but but yeah, I mean, if he really showed us, like Paul went up to the third heaven and saw it, and he said, I was caught between the two. I really wanted to stay, but God told me I have to come back for these people's sake. So that's the way it is. So when you get up there, you're gonna all the things you've gone through down here, and all your beliefs, and all your fears, and all your joy, whatever, all that disappears. And it's hard for us to understand why we even went through it, but God has His plan. It's some sort of refining process. And the refining process, like refining gold, is that all the dross is removed and you just have pure gold at the end.
And they shall reign forever and ever.
Amen, sister, preach it. I read that's in the Bible someplace.
Yeah, right there on 22, chapter
22, we're getting there. I know it seems like forever. 21 is next week, and then our next couple weeks, and then 22 will be the following 2 weeks, and then we're getting pretty close to the end, I
That's
think.
where the word reign gives me the idea we're gonna be,
I think you're right. He calls us in 1 Peter 2:9 a kingdom of priests, or priestly kings. So that's it. Honey, why don't you